I am the pop pop, and 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 the pop pop.
Let's celebrate the beautiful creature. Let's spread your wings, let's sing songs about freedom. Like la la la, for the jungle of freedom. Like la la la, calling a beautiful creature.
Good morning. I'm John Murphy, the worship associate for today, and I welcome each of you who have joined us in this virtual worship service of All Souls Unitarian Church. Today, our hearts are nearly breaking as we contemplate the grief of surpassing the 100,000 mark of deaths due to COVID-19. We're moved to tears as we witness how the ripping off of the scabs has uncovered festering wounds of years of suppressed rage from unresolved racial inequities and injustice. We weep at the warring divides that grip our world today. It is my sincere hope that gathering today in worship will help restore some sense of balance in our lives for at least the short time we are together in spirit. All Souls is an inclusive congregation where we continually renew our promise to try to live the elements of our covenant. In spite of our current need to protect each other by avoiding physical contact, we remain steadfast that our purpose is to put love into action. We intend to spark positive change within ourselves and in our communities in whatever ways we can. We continue to embrace a hope that we can help move the arc of the universe towards justice. If you have joined us today because you're searching for community, we are so happy to have you with us. If you have questions about All Souls Church or Unitarian Universalism, please browse our website, www.allsoulsindy.org, all lowercase letters. There you will find information about us and contact information for any of our capable staff. Today, more than ever, we need to connect with each other and cultivate community. Later in the service, we'll display a link to an online connection card that provides a means for you to let us know of changes or concerns in your life, and a way for you to let us know of your interest in one of the or more of the upcoming opportunities for virtual interaction. If you are visiting our Zoom service for the first time and want to develop a closer connection to the All Souls community, you can use the connection card to provide us with your contact information. Today's and next week's worship services will mark the last two Sundays where Reverend Anastassia will be participating. As most of our members know, she and her family will be relocating to the Washington, D.C. area, where she will begin her settled ministry at the UU Church of Annapolis. Today, we will be given the opportunity to hear her reflections on her ministry here at All Souls. Next week, we will exchange our final goodbyes with a virtual de-installation service. As a heads up, today's worship service may be a little longer than usual, so feel free to get up and move around if you need to. And now I invite us to enter into a time of worship. Today, Nadia Carmody will light our chalice. And now I will recite our covenant as you listen prayerfully. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant.
My dear ones, as I somehow say goodbye to you today, I wanted to use a song. And the reason why I wanted to bring a song into this moment is because songs are one of the ways that we bless one another. And so I offer this song to you as a way for me to say, I love you and I bless you. You may remember it from some of our wonderful moments in the past. Listen to the song in your heart. Listen to the song in your heart. It's a song of love. Everyone has a part. Listen to the song in your heart. When I think about us, and I think about the song in my heart, so many of the memories that come back to me are moments when I was able to bless you. Some of you I got to hold in my arms when you were so young you couldn't even hold up your head. I got to perform the child dedication, a dedication in which we recognized your inherent worthiness, where we blessed you with compassion, and we promised that we would accompany you and move along with you through life. I literally held you in my arms and took you up and down the aisles of this beautiful sanctuary, holding your face so the 100 or so faces around you could look into your eyes and feel the love in their hearts. Some of you I dedicated when you were older children. Some of you I got to bless as you went through the age of reason or our coming to age rituals. Some of you I bridged into adulthood. Some of you I got to marry, being present as you vowed yourself to one another. Some of you I blessed as your parents got married and helped you be part of that sacred union. Other ones of you I blessed in other ways, as I offered thanks for being teachers to our congregation, as I've blessed you as being justice makers. Some of you I have blessed as you've participated in a ritual of our congregation, our beautiful Dia de Muertos service or our flower communion, those moments when you are willing to be vulnerable to one another. Some of you no longer with us, I've blessed on your deathbeds, often saying again the words of our covenant. What I've come to realize through all this is how often we've blessed one another and how my role as minister has been such an honor because I've been the channel of the blessing that this congregation wanted to offer to you through me. Now, I wanted to say that these were not just fond memories. In fact, the reality of these can be found a little bit more in the Cinderella story. Now, you might remember that Princess Aurora, when she was born, they invited these good fairies to come, and two of the good fairies blessed Aurora. And then a third fairy came who was really pissed off and angry because she wasn't invited, and she cursed little baby Aurora. But then the third good fairy came and said, I'm gonna bless Aurora. And the blessing that she gave was, instead of when she pricked her needle at the age of 16, instead of having her die, she would fall into a deep sleep. Now, I offer this to you because some of the blessings that you experience, you'll feel right away, but other ones will linger for you. And they might not, the power of them might not become evident for years or even decades. So I want you to know two things. First, that when I blessed you, it wasn't just me blessing you alone. It was also this congregation blessing you through me, but also often adding their words of blessing on top of my own. And second is that you continue to hold that blessing within you, always. It is within you, it holds you, and it will be ready to support you at those moments when you are most challenged in life. And so I want to sing this song again to you as a vehicle to carry you in to those difficult moments in life, so you can find again the power of the song and the blessings that you've received. Listen to the song in your heart. Listen to the song in your heart. A song of love, everyone has a part. Listen to the song in your heart. Now I'm going to sing it again, and this time I want to sing it so you can learn the words for yourself. Listen to the song in your heart. Listen to the song in your heart. A song of love, everyone has a part. Listen to the song in your heart. Then this third time, I want you to sing it along with me. Please stay muted, but I ask that you sing along so you could feel this blessing as the breath moving through your mouth. Listen to the song in your heart. Listen to the song in your heart. A song of love, everyone has a part. Listen to the song in your heart. May that song, that blessing, come back to you and back to you whenever you need it. May you know that these blessings be ever present to you in your life. May it be so. Amen.
Goodbyes are complicated, even in the best of times. If there were to be handshakes, hugs, kisses, or words of affirmation and love whispered privately, well, that's all out the window. Damn this insidious beast with the benign sounding name, novel coronavirus, has ripped all that and more away from us. I say that goodbyes are complicated because they engender almost the entire gamut of emotions: sorrow, loss, fear, release, forgiveness, love, appreciation, anticipation, joy, renewal, and excitement, to name a few. I know I personally am experiencing many of these feelings as we wish Godspeed to our minister. Reverend Anastassia will give voice to what she's feeling as she prepares to take her leave and continue her life journey and ministry with new companions. As I say, I have mixed feelings about this. I am sure she does too. Without stealing too much of her musings, I would like to share a few things she said about us to prospective interim ministers that were looking at us. She says of us as a congregation, they are amazingly and surprisingly adaptive given the invitation. They won't tell you this, but they are willing to be bold. I have seen them generously make space for new ideas and for people different from themselves. They are resilient and humble. They will work to see that collaborative efforts succeed. I have seen that not only can they love a minister, they can love and appreciate different ministers. In short, I love them dearly. They deserve more good ministers. Anastassia will fall in love with future congregations that she serves. That is her nature. However, she will always remember the tenderness that we were her first love. I am certain that she departs from us with gratitude for our nurturing growth, her growth as a minister, for serving as a laboratory for experimentation, and for celebrating her successes. Tears have been shed and more will surely flow as we voice our fond farewells. But we can take solace in knowing that although protocol demands that we separate completely for a time, whenever Anastassia thinks of us, she will always do so with love and appreciation. It's just downright criminal that Anastassia won't be able to receive our well wishes and words of encouragement with our hand on her shoulder or our arm wrapped around her. We'll do our best to engage in a verbal group hug next Sunday. But for today, let us take in her parting words to us as the service continues. I now invite you to mute yourselves if you haven't and sing along hymn 1012, When I Am Frightened.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong?
My dear ones, it is hard to say goodbye, and it is hard to go into a time of change and transition, particularly, I think, in church life. I know that you give so much trust and access to your life to the minister or ministers who serve you. And in this time, when we are grieving the loss of 100,000 and more Americans, when we don't know if the person that we are walking by is sick or not, or perhaps even worse, if we will spread a sickness to them, when lives have been taken and breath extinguished, when our cities are angry and burning, we want to know who's at our side. I want you to know that you will be okay, though. You will be okay because you are a covenantal people. That's right, this covenantal people specifically. Now, I want to say that of all the things that I have learned from you, it is how to be a covenantal people that I appreciate the most. Now, I like to say that I think we've been reciting this specific covenant as a community since 1903, but actually the history of covenanting is way older than that. We are part of a tested and tried tradition. In fact, the history of covenanting dates back into the 1550s to Great Britain to a religious reformer named Robert Brown, who pushed for a radical shift in church life. He was inspired by the ideas of the Protestant Reformation, and drawing upon the image of God's promise making in the Bible, he argued that churches should be gathered in a similar way. Specifically, that we should be gathered through the act of promise making. Churches, he said, should be places where relationships are formed by a covenant among people. Again, instead of coming together around a common doctrine or a set of professed beliefs, he said people should walk together on the basis of certain religious principles. Does this sound pretty familiar? I feel like he was truly in our lineage. In fact, the word covenant is based on convere, to travel together. And as part of that traveling together, congregations would have the right to choose their own ministers and teachers, to put forth and debate issues to learn the truth, and would learn to welcome a diversity of opinion, even opinions expressed as protest or dissent. Now, you might think that the Protestant Reformation was a theological revolution, but it wasn't. It was actually a revolution that pushed against the notions of authority. Instead of saying that only the Pope had authority or only the clergy had authority, it said that every single person in a church had ownership, had authority. And this basis for their authority lay in their ability to make promises. To make promises. And when we come together as a covenantal people, we make two promises, essentially. A promise how we will act towards one another, how we will behave together, and a promise about what values we will strive towards, journey towards together. It is those two things, the values that unite us and the actions and care we express towards one another. Those are the things that shape us as our community. The great Jewish philosopher Martin Buber said that each person, each human being is a promise-making, promise-keeping, promise-breaking, and promise-renewing creature. At All Souls, I have seen deeply how you've been shaped by covenant. I have seen you use covenant to invite people in, that when people come into our sanctuary for the first time, they see these words right above. You might be able to see them there. Right above, love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. And they receive that as a promise. of how they will be with us. I have seen you use this as a way to figure out how to hold a difference of opinions, to sit with, reflect. I've seen you use the wonderful process of covenant to recognize that we need to show forbearance to one another, particularly forbearance to those people who frustrate us incredibly. We recognize if we're going to make it through, we need to make it through together. And we need to do that by growing empathy and understanding and right relationship. And in moments when those relationships have been tested, I've seen you gently call each other back into relationship. And not just relationship with one another, but relationship to the values of love, seeking truth, helping one another, that are at the core of who we are. My dear ones, one time when I was at Marquette Manor, an old woman came up to me, someone who I had never met before, and she had confessed that a couple of decades earlier, she and her husband had been members of All Souls. And she said, "My dear husband died about 12 years ago. And I want you to know that every night in his last weeks, and as he was relinquishing his breath back to the universe, the words that I said to him, the words that brought him great comfort, were the words of our covenant. At times when I'm distressed and I feel alone and I don't know what to do, I recite them again, and they call me back to myself and to the holy." My dear ones, I know that these are incredibly testing times in so many ways, but I have faith that you will get through because of the covenant you practice so well together.
Please don't see just a boy caught up in dreams and fantasies. And please see me reaching out for someone I can't see. Take my hand, let's see where we wake up tomorrow. Best laid plans sometimes are just a one-night stand. And I'd be damned, Cupid's demanding back his arrow. So let's get drunk on tears and night. Tell us the reason you just wasted on the young. It's hunting season and the lambs are on the run, searching for meaning. But are we all lost stars, trying to light up the dark? Who are we? Just a speck of dust within the galaxy. And what is me? If we're not careful, turns into reality. And don't you dare let harvest moments bring you sorrow. Yesterday I saw a lion kiss a deer. Turn the page, maybe we'll find a brand new ending. When we're dancing in our tears and God, tell us the reason you just wasted on the young. It's hunting season and the lambs are on the run, searching for meaning. But
You may remember that one of my very favorite readings is the William Safford poem, A Ritual to Read to One Another. Sorry, A Ritual to Read to Each Other. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each other's tail. But if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool one another, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life gets lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. My precious ones, I have so much gratitude that I've gotten to be your minister these past 7 years. As John said, it's with you that I've really grown up as a minister. I came here and I really felt like a puppy dog of a minister, and now I no longer feel like I'm adulting. I actually feel like an adult. I want to thank you because I think together we've been on quite an adventure these past 7 years. In fact, sometimes I've had a vision that I've brought you to a cliff and we've had those paragliders behind us, and I've encouraged us to go sailing right off the edge. Now, depending on how you imagine that moment, you might see it as an incredible act of grace, of leaping and being held. You might have experienced those moments as one of incredible terror as you, I don't think anyone has plummeted, but as you have struggled to control this new apparatus against the winds and the cliff and the sands below. And in both cases, you experienced the essential act of risk-taking. I've come to learn that you cannot do ministry well without risk-taking. And by ministry, I mean what we do together. One of the things that I recognized early on that I was really grateful for is when I came here, I was a pretty new minister, and I would say I was a solid minister, not extraordinary in really any way. And what I saw here was that you needed good ministry. You needed life and accompaniment and skills and competencies and ideas and energy. And as we took on some of those risks together, as we innovated together and discovered new ways to do church together, I felt like a little Swiss Army knife. I felt like you needed me to learn how to do financial stewardship well, and that was a tool that came out. I learned that you needed someone to help guide you through a process of worship innovation, and another skill came out. We took on governance, and that was a third tool. Pastoral care, and another. Justice making in a community, and another. I discovered competencies and grew competencies in myself that I never suspected would be there. In fact, I probably would have doubted that I'd ever be good at them at all. You helped me rise to the occasion because I've loved you so. Along the way, many of you have served as a model of leadership, competent team players people with skills and insight, and who had the ability to be deliberative and decisive. For each one of you, I want you to know that I hold you in my mind, and at various moments, I channel your strengths through me. That's a gift I will take with me into the decades to come. And I want you to know that your face and my appreciation for you will be so close to my spirit in each one of those moments. I want to thank you for your forbearance. It is not lost on me how much we tried and how much change you have adapted through. I have been open about the fact that many of my colleagues have lost their positions for way less than I've asked you to do. And so many of you have offered forbearance in return, a patience and a willingness to let's see what happens. And even more for those of you who have blessed me by doing the work with me, by being by my side, by asking pertinent and challenging questions, by saying, I believe in you, and by helping us give it a good try and often succeed. I want you to know how much each of those blessings meant so much to me in those moments and continues to move through my soul and my spirit, tenderizing it and keeping my heart open to loving in this world. I want to say most of all, thank you for the joy. Thank you for the joy. One of the things that I recognized early on is that to do ministry well and to do ministry that you would respond to and feel like you could come into this place and establish trust and be vulnerable is that we had to do it work with joy. Thank you for the laughter. Thank you for the warmth. Thank you for the affirmations. Thank you for the little quirks of personality that made sure that we could be our eccentric, unique selves with one another. In short, we've been together and we have truly lived for one another, a great covenantal quality. And this has been possible because we each have taken time to get to know one another. As you know, I think the opportunity to get to know and be known and loved is the best blessing I know. And it's the blessing that we hold in our hands every single day and can offer to one another. But not only have we known one another, we have recognized that if we are only for ourselves, then we have missed a big part. And if we're only for what's happening outside in the world, then we're not caring enough about our relationships inside. We have managed not only to be internally focused, but externally focused. We have managed to pay attention to the urgent now, to go out and respond and be relevant to the world. Thank you for recognizing that you have gifts and contributions to make. Thank you for showing up for me, for one another, and for our city. For our relationship and our shared ministry, I give thanks. I invite you now to sing with me, "Oh, we give thanks."
And these far away,
I've recently learned about this prayer. I learned about it from my minister, Reverend Robert Hardy's in DC. It's called The Prayer Before the Prayer, and it's written by the magnificent Desmond Tutu and his magnificent daughter, Mfu Tutu. I want to be willing to let go, to forgive, but dare not ask for the will to forgive in case you give it to me and I am not yet ready. I am not yet ready for my heart to soften. I am not yet ready to be vulnerable again. Not yet ready to see that there is humanity in my tormentor's eyes, or that the one who hurt me may also have cried. I am not yet ready for the journey. I am not yet interested in the path. I am at the prayer before the prayer of forgiveness. Grant me the will to want to forgive. Grant it to me, but not yet, but soon. My dear ones, I've been so grateful for the level of forbearance and forgiveness that I've received. I will confess that there are a number of people who are upset at me. People who are upset at me because I did not follow through on things I said I would follow through on. People who are upset at me because I have not always been my fully grounded and ministerial self. People who are upset at me because I asked too much of them and did not respect their time. People are upset at me because the church that I helped foster here was not the church that met their spiritual needs. People are upset at me because the services went on too long, or that the music changed, or that we don't hear the organ enough. People are upset at me for these reasons and others. And more people are upset because I'm leaving. I want you to know that there have been times too when I have had to work at forgiveness. There are times when I've been challenged by a congregant and I felt like we just couldn't get on the same page, or that I've been blindsided by some action of theirs, or I have felt a need to forgive them because they could not come along on a journey that I could tell that the congregation wanted to take, and that loss for me felt personal. In each of those moments, and particularly as I've approached my departure, I want you to know that I've done a specific thing. It's a different kind of prayer of forgiveness. I picture the person I'm struggling with. I close my eyes and I picture their face, their body, the clothes they wear. I picture everything about them in as much specific detail as I can. I recall every story about them that I know, the little specifics of their lives that they entrusted me with. I think about the hopes that I know and the struggles, the things from their childhood and adulthood that want to run through that dike. And then I think about love, our covenantal love, but also the love that I have for that person in particular. Because I have found when I know someone's story, I have more forgiveness and patience for the little quirks of personality that too often drive us apart. And I imagine that love enfolding them and them experiencing a kind of peace. And simultaneously, I recognize in my soul my compassionate desire for their well-being. I want you to know that how much that prayer has helped me, and that my first year in ministry here and my last year in ministry here have been my most challenging. But I want you to know, as I leave from this place, I leave with only gratitude and love in my heart. I hope that the many of you whom I have frustrated or angered or disappointed, I hope that you forgive me. I also hope that you forgive me for yourself. Forgiveness lets us move forward. It lets us learn to trust and be vulnerable again. In fact, when you forgive, it's then you could truly move forward in ministry and congregational life without me. I also want you to know, if you are not ready to forgive, that's okay too. Forgiveness doesn't have to happen on a timeline. It doesn't have to be spoken out loud, and it certainly doesn't have to happen in the next week. I want you to know, however, that I appreciate you and where you are, and I also receive you in love. I invite you to sing with me this litany of forgiveness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our assumptions have prevented us from seeing the other truly.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time we have failed at forbearance.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For not reminding each other often enough of the good person and good people we know each other to be.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For these and for other acts both evident and subtle, which have countered the spirit of our covenant, so dear to our hearts.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
I love this Frederick Buechner quote. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. I have said to you many times over the years that the world is hungry. And the presence and the nourishment and the healing and the power and the energy and the companionship that they might just be yearning for is you. There are many ways that we have followed our values with gladness to meet the hunger of the world with greater love, justice, and inclusion. I want to share with you some of those. We have met this hunger by affirming that love is love. To be gay is to be unabashedly here and proud, and that trans people are divine. We welcomed the Freedom School, joined them in the streets, raising our voices to end child hunger. And each day and each morning, we join them in raising our voices joyously in song. In the face of patriarchy, we nevertheless persisted, taking to the streets and the State House to insist that women's rights are human rights and that reproductive health care is simply health care. We went to Selma to connect with our ancestors, walk in their footsteps across the Edmund Pettus Bridge as an act of ritual, a commitment to oneself and others, not to relegate the civil rights movement to the past, but rather to embody it today. We recognize that each and every person possessed sacred life and refused to allow our city to double the number of jail beds, over incarcerating our siblings. We went to the State House to insist that our government work to keep us safe, so families do not need to shop in terror. The work was not always glamorous, but the partnership was good. All the more so when we knew that we helped bail a mama out of jail to be with her babies. In fact, there were many blessings. When we installed the solar panels, planted trees, and recycled a little bit more. These were the days when we knew that making a difference was good. They gave us hope, hope that helped us resist despair when violence struck, immigrants were denied, and families separated. We discovered along the way that these values don't belong to us alone. We were united with thousands in our commitment, happy and willing to add our presence and gifts where most useful, including gathering at the War Memorial last night to affirm that Black lives matter, that George Floyd's life matter, that breath is sacred, never to be taken. Now, I know some of you were there, and many of you watched the news last night. Our city is hurting after a miscarriage of justice in our nation, and many are taking to the streets across the country in ways that are destructive and causing further harm. Yet for those of us who are witnessing in what is taking place in the streets of Minneapolis, Indianapolis, and 75 or more different cities across our nation, we feel an urge, perhaps some of us feel an urge to condemn people who are expressing their anger and hurt. We should remember what Martin Luther King Jr. said on March 14th, 1968. A riot is the language of the unheard. It is the dream denied that Langston Hughes spoke to us about in prophetic terms. Today, my dear ones, our hearts should break. They should break. They should not break down, though, not break down in ways that silence us or shut us down or make us turn inside, but rather break open with empathy to the hurt of our fellow Americans, and specifically our fellow Americans of color. Nazreen Khan, our Director of Programming and Communications, was there last night, late, as violence took our streets. She sent me an email, and in it she wrote this: I've just come back from the protests in downtown Indy, where you know by now things have turned deeply violent. My Quaker sandwich partner and I, both radical pacifists, stood at the corner of a burning police barricade with milk and tear gas solution for protesters streaming out of the arrest zone with lungs burning and eyes aflame. While neither of us condoned violence or participated in anything, but providing lay medical attention while the medic stations were overwhelmed, we could both understand the anger and grief of those committing direct action, the collective gasping for breath as the very air turned to poison gas mirrored the way that for all of us Black and brown bodies, racism has been a poisonous gas that we have inhaled through our pores and exhaled in our shame all our lives. It felt as if the whole city were struggling to just take one breath amidst the strangling suffocation of COVID-19 and racist oppression that can choke a man to death on a sidewalk in 2020. A sidewalk that currently sparkles with the broken shards of a dozen glass windows. And I am reminded of the painting I gave you as a birthday goodbye present, titled Breath, and on which was written, although only breath, words that I command are immortal. For me, the most powerful chants of the protesters today were the chants that said the names of the murdered people over and over again, commanding immortal words collectively. My dear ones, today I'm going to invite you to hear again the names of those that we've lost in our nation, deaths that were entirely preventable. We will come together to reaffirm what is sacred and to process the cruelty and injustice of life together. Over the years, we have done so much together. I have seen that in many ways, our contribution has mattered. We have not done this alone. But these efforts were all the better because we showed up. And today, you and I have this last opportunity to try to shift the narrative, try to protect life, try to show up as moral change agents. I invite you to come downtown at 2 today to join me and other clergy leaders and people of faith and citizens of ethical intent for a processional for racial justice. May it be so. We hold the pain of the world, and we also hold the joys and sorrows of our community. I wanted to let you know that some of you may remember Mark Ewert, who was our capital campaign consultant. His brother died of COVID last Monday. And in a moment of joy, because this world asks us to pivot from trauma and pain to joy and celebration like that our member Laura Snyder and her spouse Evan are expecting their first child December 7th. May we express our congratulations and thanks to them and bless them when their baby arrives. I invite you to name out loud in the silence of your heart or in the chat function those people or causes that you carry with you here today. Marianne, we're holding your son Evan as well. Thank you for everyone who's expressing that you're coming. It's truly an important moment in the ongoing civil rights movement. Teresa, Richard, Annalise, we're holding your daughter, Kyla, and your mother, Kyla. We're holding Cece's sister, Priscilla, who lives in Minneapolis. We're holding Crystal's friend, Lisa, who has stage 4 cancer. I hold all of this, and we hold all of this. And on top of it, all that is named and unnamed as we live our tender lives. I invite you now into a moment of silent contemplation, where you connect with your body and your breath as a way to ground you in these times that demand so much. Amen. Today, I'm sharing another beloved reading by Mary Oliver entitled Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and filament. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. My dear ones, we're so close to the time where we have to let each other go. This is all the more tender and difficult and also more possible because I have loved you and I have felt loved by you. In fact, I'd say that the thing I have most felt to think about Ivu Patel is that you have held a crown above my head and have asked me to rise to meet it. You have blessed me by seeing my potential, by being patient as I've strived to live into it, by being compassionate, by listening, by being forbearing. During my time here, I have loved you with all my heart. I have given you my thoughts 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year for 7 years. I think constantly about this people and how I could help bring life and purpose and connection. I told Reverend Joel Miller, who will soon be your interim minister, that what I really loved and appreciated about you guys is that in my experience, you responded like tall, radiant sunflowers to ministers who show up for you and who encourage you. You're bright, radiant sunflowers who turn your glowing faces towards those who show you love. In short, you were really easy to love. And as John said, you will always be my first love. It's that love that I have for you that makes me so confident for your future, because I'm so confident in who you are. I know if you hold on to covenant and you cultivate joy, life and blessing and purpose and an enduring future can be yours. So in short, I love you. I thank you for loving me. I thank you for loving my family and especially my children. You will journey in my heart, and I will think of you with gratitude and affection for years to come. Thank you for holding me in your hearts as well. Amen.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm gonna hold on to you as long as I can. Gonna hold on to you as long as I can. If you choose to leave me, girl, I'll understand. I'm gonna hold Mississippi. Our journey starts in Minnesota. Take out 35 to 90. Soon through South Dakota. Big out a big country road. Are we gonna make it on down? She say, yeah, Tim, good to see you, man. Hope y'all stick around, and if you do, it's not the hardest to see. Do what you do, girl. Please don't leave. Oh, I'm gonna hold on to you as long as I can. And I'm gonna hold on to you as long as I can. If you choose to leave me, girl, I'll understand. 'Cause I'm gonna hold on to you as long as I can.
Hello, dear ones. This is what happens when I'm wiping my eyes as I'm looking at the slides. And as we experience this bittersweet moment of releasing Anastassia, I hope we can take some joy in manifesting the community that she has loved, fostered, and affirmed during her time here. Here are some ways to do that this week. Of course, you can join us downtown this afternoon, but you can also use the connection card link in the chat box to explore some of the different ways to be in community here at All Souls and indeed in our larger Indianapolis community. You can provide household items for our Interfaith Hospitality Network families who are, thanks to the hard work of one of our partner organizations, being housed in apartments instead of our churches during COVID. You can drop off food to those who cannot travel to the No Questions Asked food pantry. You can also donate some of the items they need the most, which include diapers, wipes, and trash bags or cleaning products. You can join our Transforming Hearts discussion group, which helps us to be more open and welcoming and have a deeper understanding of trans individuals in our congregations and communities. Our Twilight Zone Tuesdays group has moved from noon to 1. You can also, and as your Director of Children's and Community Programming, I particularly ask for this, you can link to 2 different sign-up forms. And one is a quiz that allows you to express your opinion on when we should be hosting our summer RE classes. And the other is one that allows our children and youth to sign up for different weekends this summer as our chalice lighters. If you saw what a completely lovely job Nadia Carmody did this morning, then you know the importance of this moment and how wonderful it can be to see our children and youth manifest our Unitarian Universalism, even in times when we cannot be together. And so I hope that everyone will take the time to choose a weekend this summer and share yourselves, your wonderful, miraculous selves with us. At this time, there will be some music and you'll have an opportunity to fill out the connection card, and I hope that you will all do so. Thank you.
Today, I wanted to pick an organization to share our plate that means a lot to me personally. It is the Children's Defense Fund, which many of you will recognize as being the sponsor organization for the Children's Defense Fund Freedom School program that we have been hosting in our church for the last 4 summers. This summer, we have decided to forego offering the Freedom School because we did not believe that we were able to do so in a way that would be safe for our scholars, volunteers, and teachers. Instead, our Freedom School staff is going to be reaching out to our families to support them during this time of social distancing and disrupted learning. The Children's Defense Fund, beyond the Freedom School, helps to support the lives of children across our country and sometimes even around the globe. Many of you know that child hunger has been increasingly a problem affecting millions of kids during this time of pandemic. Because of the shared work that we do to meet the needs in our community, to remain aware and awakened to the world, I ask that you give generously to the Children's Defense Fund and to All Souls, which makes this work happen. You may do so using the PayPal link that is shown on your screen if you type it in, or that is in your chat function. Thank you so much for your generosity. My dear ones, this is the benediction, the blessing I leave you with. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Let the soft belly of your body love what it loves. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Meet the hunger of the world like your whole life depends on it. Help the suffering. Honor all beings. Let forgiveness and gratitude be your bywords. Each day, live your covenant. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Will you now join me in singing, How Can I Keep from Singing? A beautiful tune that calls us to life even when we experience grief.
My life goes on in endless song on the bird's lamentation. I hear the rill go far off in that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? But though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. But though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, and through the dark I'm clinging. Since love lives in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to death are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing? Stop. Can we do the clap?
Thank you all so much for joining us today. I just want to point out to you a couple of announcements that are coming up. Most importantly, you have another week to say goodbye to Reverend Anastassia. You want to make sure that if you have something to say to her, you should do that very soon. Next week is her last Sunday with us, where we'll be doing her de-installation service. Also notice we have a Twilight Zone Tuesdays at 1 o'clock. If you are interested in joining our breakout room for children at the end of this service, please let us know in the chat so I can sort you accordingly, like the sorting hat in Harry Potter. You get to ask where you go, so it's a task. Have to ask me and I'll put you where you want to be. Also note that we have daytime or evening roots and wings classes. And most importantly, know that through all these trying times, All Souls is here for you in the ways we can help you. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you would like to. Go get yourself some coffee, stretch your legs, take a break, and we'll be back with our virtual coffee hours in just a few minutes. Thank you.